Watchers 3, Episode 4, The Negotiations. As the lunar base settled into a tense quiet following their recent confrontations, the Rocker sisters were suddenly alerted to a new message. Their watches vibrated in unison, a direct line from the ship, now more ally than mere vessel, informing them of a critical vulnerability and a potential counterattack from the insectoid race. The security systems of this base are designed to shut down during a lockdown, an emergency protocol that was fatal for the master race. A base-wide power outage should have been impossible, or so they thought. The ship explained through their watches. The security shutting down due to lack of power means no drones. The only security you have is the locked hatch. Nikki, always keen to lighten the mood, chimed in. I hate just calling it the ship. Shouldn't it have a name? Something that stands for freedom, or even just freedom? Brittany nodded, considering the suggestion seriously. It's more than a ship. It's been our guardian, our guide. Freedom suits it. Ashley in frustration. Yay, freedom will do. Now can we talk about that counterattack thing the ship mentioned? I'm sorry, that freedom mentioned, with a smirk left resting on her face. Agreeing to name their vessel Freedom, they turned their attention to the urgent task at hand. As the Rocker sisters found themselves facing an urgent task that demanded immediate attention. Freedom communicated through their watches, highlighting the critical need to fortify their position against the looming threat of the insectoid race. Freedom explained, during the pivotal rebellion that marked the turning point in the struggle between the insectoid race and the master race, the insectoids executed a cunning and decisive strategy to seize control of the command center, ultimately ensuring their dominion over the lunar base. They achieved this by strategically shutting down the power, triggering an automatic lockdown and activation of the base's security protocols. This sudden blackout left the master race vulnerable and disoriented, unable to access their own defensive mechanisms or communicate effectively. In the ensuing chaos, the insectoids, who had prepared for this moment in the shadows, swiftly overran the command center, exploiting their adversaries' momentary weakness. The master race, caught unprepared by the insectoids' intimate knowledge of the base's systems and their exploitation of the security protocols, suffered catastrophic losses. Only a few members of the master race managed to escape the onslaught, fleeing to Earth in scout ships where they have remained in hiding, biding their time. This strategic use of the base's own security measures against its rulers not only demonstrated the insectoids' tactical ingenuity, but also marked the beginning of a new era of control over the base and, by extension, their influence over Earth's fate. It seems like they are using the same tactics. You're outnumbered roughly 1.3 billion to 1. Swift action is needed. Freedom then told them to locate the replicator. Then it instructed them to locate a seemingly innocuous panel on the replicator's side, one that blended so seamlessly with the machine's design it had gone unnoticed. Use your watch to scan the panel, Freedom directed. Nikki, who had voiced her desire for the ship to have a name, took the lead, her watch emitting a soft blue light that revealed the hidden access point. With a gentle push, the panel clicked open, revealing a complex circuitry and a series of ports that were the key to overriding the lockdown protocols. You'll need to manually adjust the circuitry. I'll guide you through each step, Freedom communicated, its instructions appearing on their watch displays. Nikki, staring in confusion, says, "Looks like you're up, Ashley." Stepping aside, with the circuitry laid bare, Ashley entered the next phase of the operation. Freedom relayed complex schematics and bypass techniques directly to her watch, translating the ship's vast knowledge into actionable steps. Ashley's familiarity with electronic systems allowed her to interpret these instructions, identifying key nodes and circuits that controlled the lockdown protocols. Her task was to reroute power and data flows in a way that tricked the replicator into operating as if in a normal state, despite the lockdown. This was no simple feat of hacking. It required a deep understanding of the replicator's design and the base's overarching security framework. Freedom's role was crucial, offering real-time analysis and adjustments based on Ashley's progress. The ship's AI was not just a source of information, but a dynamic partner, adapting its guidance as Ashley encountered unexpected challenges. Each wire Ashley adjusted and each command she inputted was met with resistance from the replicator's security systems. These systems were designed to prevent exactly the kind of manipulation she was attempting. However, Ashley's methodical approach, coupled with Freedom's encyclopedic knowledge of the base's technologies, allowed them to anticipate and counteract these safeguards. They worked in harmony, a symphony of human determination and artificial intelligence towards a common goal. The moment the replicator hummed to life, fully operational and unrestricted, Nikki leans over Ashley's shoulder and whispers ever so softly, "Nice," squeezing her in a small embrace. The sisters shared a triumphant look as they tested the replicator, confirming it could now produce more than just basic sustenance. Weapons, medical supplies, and technical tools all were within their reach. "Good work," Brittany praised, her eyes reflecting the gravity of their situation but also the determination to prevail. "Let's make sure we're prepared for whatever comes next." Freedom explained, due to the AI-driven security, that the master race had long upheld a strict prohibition against the widespread possession of weapons within the moon base. This decree was rooted in a philosophy of control and the maintenance of a strict hierarchy. By limiting access to weapons, the master race could effectively suppress any potential rebellion or challenge to their authority. The leaders, however, were permitted personal armaments as a symbol of their status and for the execution of their duties, ensuring their dominion over the base and its inhabitants. With the AI security system, they saw no need for anyone else to be armed. Informed they need to use the red chip from the droid, placing it in the access port of the replicator to produce the Watcher's 3 Imperial weapons. The first of the weapons produced was a defensive bracelet designed for Nikki. Freedom detailed its multifaceted defense capabilities, including energy shields, countermeasures against electronic warfare, and a short-range electromagnetic pulse that could disable nearby threats. This bracelet symbolized the protective aspect of leadership, embodying the responsibility to safeguard the community from harm. Brittany's weapon was a set of goggles equipped with targeting systems and various offensive capabilities, ranging from non-lethal stun settings to lethal force options. These goggles represented the precision and decisiveness required of leadership, allowing for surgical strikes against threats without endangering bystanders or critical infrastructure. The third weapon, a chest plate designated for Ashley, was perhaps the most formidable, a device capable of mass destruction. It could be calibrated to affect areas as small as a single room or as vast as 20 miles, depending on the scale of the threat. This chest plate embodied the ultimate responsibility of leadership, the hard decisions that sometimes necessitated widespread action for the greater good. Freedom emphasized that these weapons, while powerful, came with significant limitations. They were designed to function only in proximity to each other, a safeguard that ensured no single leader could act unilaterally without the consensus of the others. This requirement for close physical proximity and unanimous agreement among the wielders underscored the master race's philosophy of balanced power and collective decision-making. Moreover, the weapon's energy reserves were finite. Nikki's defensive bracelet, given its non-lethal nature, had the highest rate of use before needing to recharge. Brittany's goggles offered a moderate use rate, balancing between efficiency and potency. Ashley's chest plate, given its potential for mass destruction, was the most restricted, capable of only 1 or 2 uses before its energy was depleted. This limitation reflected the master race's cautious approach to power, the understanding that the greatest strengths lie not in the frequency of their use, but in the wisdom of their application. "Attention," Freedom initiated, its tone serious yet reassuring. "The weapons you now possess are not only advanced, but require precise operation to maximize their effectiveness while minimizing risk to yourselves and the integrity of the base." For Nikki and her defensive bracelet, Freedom explained, this device can project energy shields of varying sizes and strengths. Activate it with a quick tap. You can expand or contract the shield by spreading or pinching your fingers over the surface. Remember, the shield's duration and strength are directly proportional to its size and the energy available. Use it wisely to protect yourselves and create strategic advantages during combat. Turning its attention to Brittany and her targeting goggles, Freedom continued. These goggles have been calibrated for both reconnaissance and combat. Utilize the targeting system by focusing on an enemy. You can switch between non-lethal and lethal modes with a blink. Be aware the lethal setting should be used sparingly, as it draws significantly more power. Coordination with Nikki's shield can create openings for critical strikes against the insectoids. Lastly, Freedom addressed Ashley and the chest plate, the weapon of mass destruction. This device is your last resort, capable of a wide-scale attack that can decimate enemy ranks. To activate, press and hold the central panel until you feel a vibration, then release. The area of effect can be adjusted prior to activation. Be advised, the energy consumption is substantial, and its use will necessitate a period of recharge for the chest plate, during which it will be inoperative. Freedom concluded, there is more to each of these weapons, but those are the basics. The girls take a moment to get acquainted with their weapons. Boom, boom, boom. The loud banging noise reverberated through the room, each thud sending a wave of tension through the air. Brittany's voice cut sharply through the commotion. That's the hatch. Nikki, her expression tense, confirmed the source of their alarm. They're trying to get in. Outside their fortified command center, the insectoids were making a determined effort to breach the hatch, their intentions unclear but undoubtedly hostile. Despite Freedom's warnings and their own reservations, the Rocker sisters found themselves contemplating negotiation. We want peace, they relayed through the communication system, attempting to establish a dialogue with the besieging insectoids. Freedom reminded them, they do not negotiate. The insectoids replied back, open the hatch to prove you want peace. Facing the prospect of a violent confrontation for which they might not be fully prepared, the sisters felt they had little choice but to entertain the insectoids' overtures. Perhaps there was a chance, however slim, for a peaceful resolution. We'll listen to their lies, Brittany decided, her voice betraying the heavy weight of their decision. We open the door for a peace treaty. In a sign of good faith, proving we seek peace, the hatch opened, and for a moment there was a tense pause, a breath held in collective anticipation of what would happen. It was a trap. The moment the hatch's seals broke, the insectoids launched their assault, exploiting the sisters' brief hope for peace as an opportunity to attack. The command center, once a haven of safety and strategy, became a battleground. As the hatch swung open, revealing the aggressive stance of the insectoids poised for attack, the Rocker sisters sprang into action, their preparation and resolve coalescing into a fierce determination to defend their ground. Nikki, quick to respond, activated her defensive bracelet with a swift motion. A shimmering energy shield sprang to life around them, deflecting the first wave of projectiles hurled by the insectoids. The air crackled with electricity as Nikki maneuvered, extending the shield to protect them from multiple angles, her focus unwavering despite the chaos erupting around them. Nice job, Nikki, Ashley shouts. Brittany, meanwhile, donned her specialized goggles, the world before her shifting into a spectrum of tactical data and weak points highlighted against their adversaries. She targeted the advancing insectoids with precision, her choices between stun and lethal force calculated in split-second decisions. Each shot from her goggles disrupted the insectoids' formation, causing confusion and halting their advance. Her actions were a dance of strategy and survival, each move saving precious seconds, pushing them back. Ashley, the custodian of the chest plate, stood ready, her hand hovering over the device's activation. She understood the gravity of unleashing its power, the balance between decisive force and the preservation of the base. As the insectoids regrouped for another assault, they charge. She made the call, unleashing a targeted pulse from the chest plate. The energy wave emanated outwards, its scale precisely controlled, neutralizing a swath of the insectoids, splattering their innards all over their comrades. Placing fear into the eyes of the insectoids, without compromising the integrity of the command center. The insectoids, taken aback by the sisters' formidable defense and the unexpected might of their countermeasures, hesitated. This moment of disarray was all the sisters needed. Nikki extended her shield, pushing forward to create a buffer zone, while Brittany took advantage of the disruption in the enemy ranks, targeting key aggressors that seemed to be coordinating the attack. Ashley, realizing she used more power than she anticipated, assessing the situation, decided against a second use of the chest plate, conserving its power for a more desperate situation, yelling to her sisters, "I did not, dissipate using so much power," giggling at her joke, "I need to recharge." The fight, intense and unyielding, tested the sisters' limits and their ability to work seamlessly as a unit. "Teamwork makes the dream work," screamed Brittany, as the last of the insectoids retreated, beaten back by the sisters' resolute defense. The command center's hatch sealed shut once more, a barrier against the chaos outside. The Rocker sisters, breathing heavily but unscathed, surveyed the room, their eyes meeting in silent acknowledgement of the battle they had just faced and won. Nikki mumbles, "Now that's how you clear a room of unwanted guests." In the aftermath of their intense battle at the hatch, the Rocker sisters found themselves in a brief lull, the immediate threat momentarily at bay. The tension in the air was thick, a tangible reminder of the dangers lurking just beyond their fortified command center. It was Ashley who broke the silence, a mix of exhaustion and jest coloring her words. "The one time I could use a blunt, and we're out." Nikki, ever the resourceful one, couldn't help but laugh at the irony. "I'm never out," she declared with a wink. "I snagged some from Dad's stash before we left. I'm just out of papers. Or a rap." Ashley, caught between the absurdity and the relief of the moment, laughed hysterically. "We have a replicator. Go make us a bong, silly," she suggested, the idea absurd enough to momentarily distract them from their dire circumstances. Brittany, ever the pragmatic one, interjected with a note of caution. "It's not really the time." Her voice trailed off, her eyes scanning their surroundings for any sign of renewed danger. Nikki, undeterred and perhaps needing the levity as much as the escape, countered, "F that, honey bun. We have a moment. You can stand guard." With that, she approached the replicator, her mind set on creating not just any bong, but a handheld replicator bong capable of replicating the cannabis sample she provided. Brittany tells Ashley, "Looks like Sis grew a pair." As Nikki programmed the replicator, a warning flashed on the interface, cautioning that the replicator sourced its atoms from an atom bank stored within the base, and without access to such a bank, production would be impossible. Nikki, with a spark of mischief and ingenuity, bypassed the safety features, instructing the device to source atoms from inanimate objects within the room if no bank was in range. So the bong will source the same bank as the station's replicator unless bank is not in range. Then the bong's mini-replicator will steal atoms from inanimate objects in range, limit capabilities to only weed, and a small scanner to scan samples. To help with size, the room's lights dimmed as the replicator was activated, drawing more power than normal, a clear burden on the backup power supply. Brittany yells out, "Nikki!" "It's fine," Nikki explained. "I'll never need weed again," Nikki boasted, her clever workaround promising an endless supply. The replicator hummed, and soon a sleek, functional bong materialized, a testament to the replicator's capabilities. Brittany, despite her initial reservations, couldn't help but smile at her sister's antics. Ashley's laughter filled the room, a brief respite from the weight of their situation. For a moment, the command center was filled not with the sound of alarms or the threat of invasion, but with the laughter of three sisters, finding solace and unity in the most unexpected of ways. Nikki's handheld replicator bong, a marvel of technology and a symbol of their brief moment of reprieve, stood ready to be used. The Rocker sisters gathered around the command desk, forming a semicircle reminiscent of simpler times before alien threats and cosmic battles had defined their existence. It was Ashley who broke the silence, her voice tinged with encouragement and a longing for a brief escape from their reality. "Fire that thing up," she said, nodding towards Nikki and the newly created bong. Nikki, holding the bong with a mixture of pride and laughter, realized a flaw in her plan. "I don't have a light," she admitted, the irony of the situation not lost on her or her sisters. Brittany, ever the pragmatic one, couldn't help but smirk at the oversight. Without missing a beat, she instructed the replicator to produce a lighter, which she then tossed to Nikki. "You're always holding smoke, that is," Brittany teased, her voice laced with affection and a hint of nostalgia, "but never seemed to have a light, just like when we were kids, little one." As the Rocker sisters settled into the semicircle around the command desk, the bong passing from hand to hand, a comfortable silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the soft bubbling of water and the occasional flick of the lighter. The tension that had stiffened their shoulders began to melt away, and the conversation flowed as freely as the smoke that filled the air. Nikki, taking a deep inhale, broke the silence first. "You know, for a moment there, I forgot we were on a lunar base fighting insectoids," she said, exhaling a cloud of smoke. Her laughter, light and genuine, echoed in the command center, a sound that felt alien in the seriousness of their situation. Ashley, accepting the bong with a smile, added, "And to think, this is probably the most peaceful moment we've had since this whole adventure started." She took her turn, the glow of the lighter briefly illuminating her face. "Dad would have found this hilarious," she said, a note of sarcasm in her voice. "Him teaching us about the stars, and here we are, smoking with them." Brittany, standing guard but still part of the circle, nodded in agreement. "He prepared us for a lot, but I doubt even he could have envisioned this scenario." Her eyes soft with memories. "But in a way, it feels like we're honoring him, using our wits and sticking together." Brittany, taking a hesitant hit. "And now we're upgrading to replicator bongs and taking on a race of bug aliens. Guess we've always been destined for greatness, or at least grand mischief." Nikki, not missing a beat, added, "Yeah, from potato cannons to planetary defense. Quite the grow-up, I'd say." Ashley, next in line, chuckled as she accepted the bong. "If Dad could see us now, defending the galaxy with weed and wit," she paused, a smirk playing on her lips, "he'd yell at Nikki, telling her to stop being a bad influence on his angels." Giggling, Brittany, watching the chaos unfold, couldn't resist joining in the fun. "At least if we can't save the galaxy, we'll go out as the most chilled defenders it's ever seen." As their laughter echoed through the command center, the absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on them. Here they were, the Rocker sisters, momentarily transforming a critical military hub into a scene straight out of their youth, complete with a homemade bong and an abundance of sibling banter. But for this moment, they were simply sisters, sharing in an act of defiance and unity. As the smoke cleared and their laughter subsided, the Rocker sisters were abruptly jolted back to reality by a loud hissing noise. The hatch door, which they had secured after the insectoid's failed attempt at negotiation, began to open, just millimeters, but enough to signal that the insectoids were onto something. Instinctively, the sisters jumped into action, their brief moment of respite forgotten as they braced for confrontation. The door burst open with violent force, and they were immediately thrust into a fight for survival. Brittany, assessing the situation with a quick, strategic eye, realized the direness of their predicament. "There are too many," she shouted over the chaos, her voice laced with urgency. Ashley, firing back against the onslaught, retorted with a mix of panic and sarcasm. "Yeah, you think? There's billions." It was Nikki who suggested the only viable option left to them. "Retreat!" Her voice was firm, cutting through the din of battle. "Brittany, we need to push through them to the ship." Freedom. What a name for it now, huh? Agreeing with Nikki's call to retreat, Brittany rallied her sisters. "To freedom! It's our only shot." The irony of their escape to a ship named Freedom, even as they were forced to engage in a brutally bloody battle, wasn't lost on them. The corridor to the ship became a nightmarish gauntlet, with the sisters forced to fight in ways they had never imagined. Guts, gore, and the harsh reality of survival painting a stark contrast to the laughter and lightheartedness of just moments ago. Brittany quickly took charge, directing her sisters into defensive positions. They had prepared for an attack, but the sheer number of insectoids pouring through the hulls was overwhelming. "Cover each other!" she yelled as she picked off the leading attackers with precise shots from her goggles, the technology allowing her to target the insectoids with lethal efficiency. Nikki activated her defensive bracelet, projecting shields around them to block incoming fire. The shields flickered under the barrage, a testament to the insectoid's determination. Nikki moved with a dancer's grace, her focus on moving with her sisters, protecting as they pushed forward. Ashley, meanwhile, found herself relying on the chest plate's capabilities less than she had anticipated. The close quarters and the risk of collateral damage made it impractical for mass destruction. Instead, she fell behind Nikki, following her movements. As the battle raged, it became clear that the insectoids were relentless, and for every one that fell, two more seemed to take its place. Covered in goo and grime, "We need to get to freedom," Brittany shouted. "I'm getting a low power warning." The path to their ship was a gauntlet, the corridors of the lunar base now a battleground teeming with adversaries. They fought their way through, a relentless push fueled by adrenaline and the single-minded goal of reaching freedom. Nikki's shields became their vanguard, parting the sea of insectoids as they made their desperate dash. Nikki shouts out, "I just got a power warning, Britt. How close are we?" Brittany, "Ouch. Just over a mile. We're not going to make it." Brittany yells out, "That's it, I'm depleted." Nikki screams, "I'm at 1%. Get ready." Ashley, seeing no other action, steps out from behind Nikki and screams with a passion of vengeance that would scare the devil himself, a blood-curdling cry, slamming her hand hard on her chest, activating the weapon. Brittany, knowing her sister activated the weapon, tells Freedom to activate its shields. As Ashley activated the chest plate's weapon, a palpable tension filled the air, the briefest moment of silence before the storm. The device, engineered for mass destruction, responded to her command, gathering energy from the very atoms around them. A deep hum resonated through the hangar, a sound felt more than heard as the core of the chest plate glowed ominously, illuminating Ashley's determined face with an ethereal light. Then, with a force that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself, the weapon unleashed its fury. A blinding flash of light erupted from Ashley, expanding outward in a rapidly growing sphere of destruction. The light was pure and intense, a miniature sun born from the heart of the lunar base itself. The blast wave that followed was a thing of awe and terror. It rolled outwards in all directions, a visible distortion in the air that swept through the hangar like a tidal wave. The force of the explosion was so immense that it sent shock waves rippling through the base's structure, the very metal of the walls and floor buckling and warping in its wake. Insectoids caught in the path of the blast were obliterated instantaneously, their forms disintegrating under the overwhelming energy. The destruction was indiscriminate and total, wiping out the enemy forces that had been hot on the sisters' heels, leaving nothing but a void where they once stood, with a distinct smell of roasted chestnuts in the air. The hangar itself bore the scars of the weapon's power. Half of the vast space was rendered unrecognizable, the intricate technology and machinery meant to house and repair ships torn apart and scorched beyond recognition. The force of the explosion had been so great that Freedom, positioned a mile away, felt the full brunt of the shockwave. The ship, protected by its shields activated at Brittany's command, was shoved 20 yards from its parking position, a testament to the weapon's raw power. Yet, thanks to the foresight of activating the shields, Freedom remained undamaged, a lone island of safety amidst the chaos of the hangar. They boarded swiftly. Brittany initiated the cloak, and Freedom slipped silently into the void of space, leaving behind the lunar base and the carnage that had unfolded. As Freedom set a course away from the moon, the sisters took a moment to process the harrowing escape they had just endured. The loss of the base was a heavy blow, but in the face of such adversity, their resolve only hardened. They had survived together, and in that unity they found the strength to vow a return. The fight was far from over, but aboard Freedom they had each other, and with that, they had everything they needed to continue the battle for their home, for Earth. B.N.Rocker